I welcome you all again for the post-lunch session on preserving and protecting the water resources river development. I would once again like to invite our session chairperson, Mr. Puneet Srivastava, Manager Policy, Water Aid India. Now, I would like to invite our eminent speakers on the dais, Ms. Priyanka Kapoor, Mr. Navdeep Singh Mehram, now the chairperson, Mr. Puneet Srivastava, can start the session.
Thank you and a very good afternoon to all of you. So, this session is going to talk about preserving and protecting the water resources in terms of river development. The two topics that are given to us are Namami Gange project plus international examples of rehabilitation of rivers, lakes, restoring natural water bodies. So we'll keep our conversation regarding these 2 points and covering other rivers in general as well. So I'm delighted to introduce you all to our two distinguished panelists today who are with us. Ms. Priyanka Kapoor is Chief Designer, Edifice Consultants Private Limited, and she practices as an architect and urban designer. She has worked in Singapore, Boston, Tel Aviv, Mumbai, and New Delhi on several architectural and urban projects. And at Edifice Consultants, she has worked on several net zero projects and is presently exploring the paradigm shift of smart cities. So I welcome Priyanka in the panel. Our other panelist is Mr. Navdeep Singh Mehram, Head Sustainability from United Spirits. Navdeep Singh Mehram is working as a Head Sustainability with United Spirits, a Diageo Group company based out of Gurgaon, and he has more than 18 years of successful professional experience in corporate social responsibility and sustainability functions. So, welcome Navdeep in the panel. And I would like to say that the topic itself has been quite a lot in discussions recently because of Namami Gange project, which has been initiated by the central government, but also because many other, river development projects we are talking about. We spoke a lot about water resources, how do we revive them and how do we manage them in the last session before lunch. And now this session is extending into an area where we are talking how do we better preserve and protect the water resources, particularly in terms of river development. All of you must be aware about the Namami Gange project, which is a flagship program targeted at cleaning of river Ganga, and also the kind of approaches that are being used so far. We have seen that in terms of protecting the water resources as such, and particularly in terms of Ganga and extending to Yamuna as well, the pollution in these rivers is one issue. The second issue is, of course, how do we, in our race for harnessing the water resources, how do we maintain the ecological flows in the river? And that extends from Ganga to all the rivers that we see today in India. It extends to Yamuna. Someone said in the last session that Yamuna is actually not a river in its stretch in Delhi, the city where we are sitting today to discuss this. And it has become a sewage canal or something like that. But again, so the issue is that given the poor sanitation status, about estimations say that 80% of the sewage is going into the water bodies, particularly surface water bodies. And therefore, and then again, it's not only about sewage, it's all sort of pollutants are making their entry into the river. And then river is slowly dying death. In different parts of the country, there are different rivers. In particular, Ganga has been the target in the Namami Gange as such, but there are other river development projects which are also talking about these issues. Now, how do we preserve and protect the water resources? I think the quality side is a one major aspect that is also in talk as of now because of the impetus on the Swachh Bharat mission as of now. And we really are able to now much more clearly see the linkages between the poor state of sanitation as well as our water quality, particularly in the rivers. And therefore, a lot of projects, a lot of fund flow is happening in that direction. Government of India is in talk with several governments, learning international experiences of how they have revived their rivers. There are a certain number of European countries with whom the assistance has been sought in that direction. And so the conventional approach to this problem has been the construction of sewage treatment plants, as you see, on the bank of Ganges, and it has been going on for quite a significant number of years under Ganga Action Plan 1, 2, and so on. These sewage treatment plants, the experience and the studies suggest has repeatedly failed us. One, because of their operational capacity. So they are designed for a certain number of population to cater for. So there are 2-3 issues which become significant in this. One, they don't get enough sewage. So that means we have not invested enough on the sewerage networks to complete the entire city, to bring the sewage to the sewage treatment plant. The other is the capacity of the local government to whatever sewage they are getting, treat it comprehensively to the environmental standards that are set by the Pollution Control Board. So this is resulting in, then again, this is again a fact that most of our urban areas are still dependent on on-site sanitation system, such as septic tanks, or even pit toilets you have been hearing about, being Swachh Bharat Mission, under Swachh Bharat Mission rural in particular, being constructed everywhere. And these are, our experience shows in the field that these septic tanks or soakage leach pits are not technically the way they are constructed as they should be. Therefore, we call them, large part of it is loosely built containment tanks. And what they are giving us out is fecal matter which is unmanaged. And therefore, there is a lot of talk of building up the fecal sludge management discourse in the policy and the program practice. And I'm happy to share with you all that Ministry of Urban Development has taken some very, kind of great steps in the last 1 year towards prioritizing this issue and funding the city governments for construction or tackling this issue of fecal sludge management under its Amrit plan. And therefore, the fecal sludge management is recognized as a kind of as a part of the urban sanitation discourse. Otherwise, in the urban sanitation, we used to talk only about the sewerage. Sewerage was equal to urban sanitation in most of the government discourses that we used to have. So that is one part. The second part is that if how we can stop this sewage either from the sewage treatment plants untreated or from other on-site solutions untreated, finding its way into our rivers such as Ganga and Yamuna and many other rivers in the country which are being used as nalas basically. So that is one. And second is ecological flow. Now this is going to be I think the single most challenge for enabling the water security both in rural and urban areas. What we are realizing today is that in terms of water security, and there is a linkage between the rivers and the groundwater that we have for the people who are basically farming communities on both sides of Ganges. In the last session, somebody mentioned that this is most water abundant river basin, the Indo-Gangetic Plains. Not only in India, but probably in the whole world. But when we go to the ground and we walk in on the villages and the cities on the bank of Ganges, what we see is that farmers who are mostly dependent on groundwater, they don't have a groundwater now at a levels from where they can easily dig it out at a low cost and irrigate their fields. They are going deeper and deeper, and water levels are depleting very fast. The cost of so now and then we have a very little flows in the river. Perhaps if you go this time in summers like this, you will find a very minimal flows in Ganga, particularly from the state where I'm coming from, in Kanpur, Allahabad, in Uttar Pradesh, you'll find hardly any flows in the Ganges. So what is happening? I think one is a dialogue around a transboundary water allocation. How does it go from state? There is a talk happening now because Aviral Ganga, they say what we know as maintaining ecological flows at all the times in a river. So that river is alive, river is healthy. Most of you must have heard about the judgment from the Uttarakhand High Court, which gave recently Ganga and Yamuna rights as a living beings. What implication does it have? Why court has to go to that direction and come to this state of declaring rivers having rights as us individuals or human rights? I think these were the issues which were troubling not only the mind of the planners, administrators, decision makers, judiciary, everybody else who is concerned about the environment, who is concerned about, as a concerned citizen, about the state of our rivers, what we have done to the water quality, both groundwater and river, and do we see linkages between groundwater and river? Are we able to see that? Are we able to, treat our rivers as rivers, I would say, as a living being, because river has an ecosystem, and ecosystem is something which is which is not what you say is a living, moving thing as such. So do we see that in that context? I think these are the kind of background that we have on the approaches that have been used in the past and how we have struggled with them in terms of either it is Namami Gange project or there. And then there are learnings from outside world of other rivers in the world where they have, been able to bring back a river to life. Not that in India people are not concerned about it, because people have been thinking about it, and people have been taking measures to the best of their ability and understanding on the ground. We had, in the last session, I cited an example of a community, a panchayat in Kerala reviving and bringing back a river to life, because that was dried up completely. They used labor to bring back it to life, and now the river is abundant. That was historically their source of drinking water and as well as to irrigate their fields. It was a small river. Nevertheless, the action from the people at the panchayat level was stupendous and has been appreciated countrywide. Similarly, in other parts of the country, for example, in UP, Fatehpur, there was a example where government and people came together to revive a river in Fatehpur district. Then we have in Punjab, and most of you must have already heard, known about the Seach Wall model of, who is known now as Eco Baba, about the revival, cleaning of the Kali Bain river, which is a tributary to Beas river. So, in different parts of the country, people are taking cognizance of this issue and taking action. Now, the issue is that what we are learning from these experiences and what we are trying to advocate at the policy level, at the national policy level, is something which probably will require more discussions, because this whole issue and the kind of business as usual approach of river cleaning projects has not been giving us the results in the past that people desire to see. And therefore, in this session, I would like our panel to deliberate on these issues and also share their experiences on these issues as we move forward in our discussion. So I would like to invite Mr. Navdeep to share his thoughts to the delegates.
Thank you, Puneet. I think it was a very interesting background. Puneet helped us to look into the subject. I will speak from the private sector experiences looking at water as a subject. I come from an organization which uses water as an ingredient in our product. So water remains at the heart of our conversations, not only from the management perspective, but from the business continuity perspective also. So it's very important subject for us. And when we do the mapping of the water sources, it takes us all the way to the river basins and all other natural resources from where the water comes from. So I was just trying to look at, like you mentioned, and I think I was studying somewhere where there was a discussion on the global commons. So water is one of the global common resource where everybody has an equal right. So whether it is a farmer, and even from the diversity or biodiversity perspective, a sparrow has an equal right on that global common. And how we put that global common resource at use, how we conserve that, I think there's a lot of behavioral aspect of us, which is something I find lacking when I'm working in the communities around not only our plant sites, but also our sites from where we source. So because we are talking about the international examples, Diageo being a global company present in many continents and countries in the world, we do have best practices across the globe. And one of the projects in Africa, which is called Water for Life, is basically working with communities to safeguard the drinking water facilities, because I think we generally do not have a mass programs around drinking water, and it is always left to the government or the local bodies to look into it. So private sector is increasingly coming into drinking water. So I'll touch upon that a little later. From a strategy perspective, Diageo, we look at our value chain 360-degree, and we say that we will work around our issues on water from where we buy, which means what we source as our agri inputs to our products, where we make, where we do our distilleries or our bottling plants are, and also where we sell, where our consumers are. So all three spaces, where we buy from, where we make, and where we sell, is taken care into our water strategy. Globally, Diageo has a water blueprint which maps the entire value chain in terms of where we buy, where we make, and where we sell. So a lot of emphasis on that. I again go back to one example in India, which I want to quote, is that from a farmer community perspective, which is heavily dependent on the water from the river, one of the initiatives in the sugarcane industry is Sustainable Sugarcane Initiative, which is helping farmers to optimize the water usage in the crop. I think that's one program which gives us a lot of, you can say, a lot of optimization of the water usage, which helps, let's say, conserve the water resources. You mentioned about the disturbing the flow of the rivers. I think, and again, I really appreciate the government basically calling them human beings, and any disturbance to their flow will definitely disturb their ecosystem, and naturally it will disturb the quality of their life, on which we all are dependent upon. So I just wanted to talk about that. And I think the second thing which I want to talk about is the government is now becoming very stringent on the businesses who are industries who consume or take water in their product or in their processes. So Central Groundwater Board in November 2015 came up with the guidelines for replenishment of water, depending on how much you consume and depending on which water stress zone you are present in the country. So there are guidelines to the extent that in a red zone you have to replenish more than 100, actually 200% also, places like Rajasthan. So we have extensive projects in Udaipur and Alwar of water replenishment. So private sector is doing as part of their voluntary efforts also, as part of social responsibility effort also. But also, I think there is a need for collaboration which is missing in this space. And I'm not saying this is absolute missing, but I think there more collaborations can achieve more results. So I think I pause here for a while so that Priyanka can speak and then we can take it forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Navdeep. Priyanka, please, can you share it? Yeah, please.
Hello. So unlike my more experienced colleagues on the dais, I'm going to speak using a PowerPoint presentation. And just so that we stay on track, just one second. It's not on here. It's not on here? Oh, yeah. Okay, so am I audible? Hi, good afternoon. I'm going to briefly kind of walk you through some of my work. Since I'm a planner and an architect, it's coming more as a thought of, as a bunch of ideas rather than solutions and proof. So I would like you to take it in that stride. The problem of, just one second. Sorry, just a second. As usual, everything is hung. So I'll start nonetheless. The issue I'm going to talk to you about is, I think the Namami Gange project and the Ganga Action Plan and all these plans, the reason they are as sort of wide and they're extremely large in comprehension. So as, sorry, just a second. अपना लैपटॉप यूज करूं क्या बॉस should I use my laptop? ये वाला Okay. So the problem with kind of a lot of these policies and programs that even Puneet was talking about is I feel that they're very large scales to comprehend. None of us really understand what is the scale of the situation and the problem as well as the solution. So as commoners, as people who kind of live with these situations every day, it gets very difficult to fathom how do you deal with something like this. And which is why it stays away from our own imagination. So just to kind of mention, the Ganga is about 2,500 kilometers long, which is very, very large to comprehend. So I'm going to take us to a smaller sort of bite-sized problem, which is, it's a Nala called the Toli Nala, which is the Adi Ganga, or the old Ganga in Calcutta. And that's the little Nala that I'm talking about. So it begins with, so it's like any other stream that you see in the city that you live in, and it has a quiet little existence when you see it upstream. But as you start going downstream, it becomes more and more the kind of places we see, which is there is urbanization along the stream, along the basin. And as you go further downstream, the stream, like a lot of our rivers, kind of disappears in the imagination of the city. So you have these large columns and these large sort of pillars of the metro system that take over instead. And as it goes even, this is only an 11-kilometer stretch that you're seeing. So it's actually a microcosm of almost all the problems that rivers face. And as you go downstream, the canal almost disappears. And you probably wonder what's so special about this canal, like why have I chosen this? This is a kind of interesting image, and this is what pulled me to this project. So if you see that image, so if you see there's a puja happening here, there's a full throttle puja going on, and that's all pollution. So that image kind of beckons the question, how has this kind of sacred space, in some sense, become this artifact of pollution. And we talk about the Namami Gange project, the Ganga Action Plan. That's the main question, and that is how we have allowed all these sort of arteries in our civilization to turn into pollution, places of pollution. And my whole thesis and argument has always been that it's because it's separated from our everyday life. We don't look at these canals, we don't look at these resources as anything much more than just resources. So just to understand, there's an author called Haberman, and if you're interested in water resources, you probably know him. He wrote this beautiful book called The River in the Age of Pollution. And what he says is that everything, a river has finite and infinite dimensions to it. The finite is actually the memory, like what you remember this river by, what meaning you have given this river. And the finite is the material issues, which is the everyday issues that you're dealing with. To understand, I feel like every water resource, to give it meaning, to understand its meaning, you have to go into history. So that's what I did with this river as well. And if you go back, it has a lot of meaning going back to the 15th and 17th centuries. That it used to be used as a place for, so if you see that image here, it was used as a place for trade and commerce, and that's Kali Ghat, which is still one of the most revered sacred places and religious places in the country, actually, definitely in that city. And so the pre-colonial identity of this place was very strong. So if you see the scale of it, that's the Adi Ganga, right? In comparison to the Ganga. So if you see it, it's quite large. So as most river basins, a large part of the atrophied nature of it is also because rivers change direction all the time. But also a secondary and a more important part is what we've done to it over the last 300 years. So during the pre-colonial age, it was it was a very dynamic space. In the colonial times, like in most cities, things got a little different. So our Cartesian inputs and fixed boundaries came into place, and the river was actually canalized. So the minute you kind of put it in a canal, the river stream changes. And of course, during the post-independence era, it got even worse. So you had embankments, you had construction industries taking over. The other thing that happened post-independence was, of course, we had very few ecological norms. And so the present condition has become more about, it's sacred and profane, it's natural and artificial, it's continuous and fragmented. And then to understand the entire sort of the problem, to understand the material aspect, to understand how it's a finite problem, a study of this nature was conducted where I got into the regional scale. What is the regional scale problem of the issue? What is the channel scale problem? And what are the smaller issues there? And essentially, it's the main regional problem is what everyone else has been saying, which is that we start treating our rivers as sewage canals. So that's the diagram which you look at now, which is from the sewage, everything goes into a pumping station and then is taken off and downloaded into our canals. And that's the larger sort of image of the place. So then a lot of studies were carried out to understand and download and read the space itself. And what I came across was, so these are kind of images to show you how, what are the eccentricities. And all this leads up to kind of the fact that we need to start using the eccentricities, using these opportunities and assets on site. So if you see all the reds, all the reds are all temples that line the banks. And there are schools. So the number of land uses is there's schools, there's the temples, mosques, and bus routes, train routes. So how do you start integrating all of this so it works with the canal and with the river? And how do you then map the issues so that you get a non-separation? So the question then becomes, how do you integrate not only the Adi Ganga, but any other river back into the city? And one of the main sort of ways of doing it is to graft, I feel, is to graft and add them back into the city, which is use the Ganga. With the Ganga is definitely used as a system of carrying people, but also these smaller canals, they need to be brought back into the city imagination as a transport modality. So in this case, for instance, you have a ferry system and you have a metro system. So an intuitive use was to create a green corridor, which would add up and create a complete loop. And that loop then becomes the green corridor, the green road, along which you have pedestrian traffic, you have cycleways, and you have an entire system which works for the access of a pedestrian. And of course, the mechanism for this green canal would be using bioswales, using, so this is a typical section that kind of works in places like this, where you have gabion walls that stop the water, you have swales that purify the water, you have a filtration. The entire bank here works as a filtration system, and the canal itself becomes a series of stabilization ponds. And then on top of that, you also have cultural corridors, which add up to that entire area. So in the end, the canal, instead of being this dead piece of infrastructure that flows into the city, is actually an amalgamation of several thought out urban interventions and acupunctures that change the imagination of that city. So it's no longer something that you look out through your back door, but it's a place where you can actually imagine and enjoy that city. And so these are, I'll just run through these, but these are sections where how pointed and small interventions actually help that cause. So I'll just run you through these. And if anyone's interested later, we can always discuss them. And the larger argument, though, is that what everyone's been saying, that there has been a top-down failure, which means that if not a failure, there has been a certain amount of the fact that the government has to do everything has not really worked out in the last 20 years. So a large part of this is to create a regulatory triangle, which is how do you bring the market involved? How do you get the community involved? And exercises of this nature are actually needed to be carried out so that you can get the community involved. There are multiple studies that show that the actual pollution levels, or they say the BOD levels, are negatively proportional to how invested the community is with the space. So the minute you get a community involved, it actually helps in changing the way a space is looked at, and they actually bring the government within the regulatory triangle. Now with the green economy, etc., you're also looking at the market as a huge factor in creating your mechanism. So that's what I'm going to end with right now.
Thank you, Priyanka. So, Navdeep raised an important point about government regulations getting more stringent on the industrial water consumption and enforcing mandatory water reuse targets by industries. So in addition to that, even the cities have set their own stringent targets. Delhi, the city where we are discussing today, has set reuse targets to treat and reuse 25% of the total sewage by 2017, 50% by 2022, and 80% by 2027. So that is quite in contrast with the fecal sludge management situation and the pollution of rivers that we see today. Surat Municipal Corporation built 40 MLD reuse plant in 2014 to supply reclaimed water to Pandasira Industrial Estate. Then we have an example from Chennai, where Chennai Metro Water Board has awarded a PPP-based reuse projects contract in 2016 to develop 45 MLD reuse capacity on design, build and operate model to supply non-potable water to industries. In Bangalore, water utilities have built up a 10 MLD tertiary treatment plant at Yelahanka that supplies reclaimed water to Bangalore International Airport. So then again, successful reuse projects such as Nagpur tertiary treatment, which is based on reverse osmosis plant, needs significant capital subsidies as of now to become fully financially viable. So there has been quite thinking that is happening around. Now coming back to the point that we were discussing, in terms of how do we see and a river in the developmental context as how do we preserve and protect both the quality and the ecological flow. I think everyone of us has the responsibility of that. But as far as now, if we go in the process of urbanization and urban planning as such, and coming back to the point that we see now that a lot of slums or villages which are just on the side of the river itself has been contributing a lot to the river pollution as such. And also in terms of water security, I talked about the groundwater and the connect with the base flows. Actually, we are doing a project in Kanpur in Ganga Bank villages, where we have observed recently that in the summer season, the season in which we are talking about this problem, Ganga does not has ecological flow in that particular section because there is a Renuka dam upstream which has withhold water. So ironically, with the dams across the river, we are holding water for different uses for which those projects were built up at a certain point of time, resulting into lesser flows downstream, and peak demand happens at the same time. Few months down the line, monsoon will come and everybody will be gaga about water. Nobody will be talking about water because we live in a country which is fed by monsoon, and that takes away all our sense of water management, what we do at our level. So what happens in the summers when the Ganga base flows goes down, it takes water from the shallow aquifers to recharge itself and to have ecological flows. That perpetuates the drought conditions on the bank of the villages, where farmers are forced, using this water, groundwater for irrigation, are forced to go dry. Small and marginal farmers are suffering because of that. The well-offs can still dig deeper tube wells and bring out the water from them to sustain themselves. But there is a connection, a clear connection that we see between the groundwater and the way the Ganga is. So now, with the more and thoughts about, we talk about ecological flow, I think we need to understand that what life of a river means. In many cities, there is a talk of river development fronts. What we do in that, if in European countries, what we have done, we have just made these rivers, developed the riverfront for beautification, and beautification, mostly aesthetics and beautification kind of a thing. But a river needs a space. River needs to meander. River needs floodplains. All of that, because of the land markets which are distorted and which are driving the urban growth, is something that we have encroached upon. And we have tried to convert our rivers into canals in those cities in the name of the riverfront development. So what is happening is the river is losing its life. And therefore, I think now we are talking about bringing technologies, bringing models from outside, which can actually protect and clean and the river further. But I think that the best way is to leave the river like it would have been for ages. Don't encroach upon its land. Don't encroach upon, don't throw waste in that. Let not the waste go into that. Give it a space to breathe. Give it a space for its ecosystem. And therefore, these are the signs. When we talk of Ganga and the life in it, we count dolphins. And dolphins are a short indicator of how good your life is in the Ganges water as you move along. We had some volunteers who were on the Ganga trail with a paddle boat. They just counted dolphins and they said, yes, still we have enough number of dolphins. So that means one recommendation that they gave after then when they paddled all through the coast of Ganga on the paddle boat, they told us coming back that we see Ganga polluted only where it is near the cities. In the other parts, it's relatively clean, and we have counted dolphins. And they had about more than 1,000 dolphins they have counted on their way, which came out. So that means it tells about something about how do we protect and preserve a water body like Ganges. How do we do with a similar kind of arrangement with other rivers that we talk about, whether it is Yamuna in Delhi or anywhere else. So I would say that. Then again, what Priyanka, sorry? I will ask the delegates. Priyanka also captured in her presentation about how deeper we get into this subject of understanding the different linkages as an urban planner and as people who decide the infrastructure part of it. So I think that these are the points that we need to deliberate upon as we move forward on this topic. Having said that, I would now like to open the house for any questions, if anybody has, from any one of our speakers. Yes, please. Can you give your introduction and then ask your question?
Hi, I'm Purva. I'm an independent consultant. This is sort of related. I wanted to know your thoughts on river interlinking.
Sorry?
River interlinking? Interlinking of rivers?
River interlinking. Okay. Any one of you would like to respond? You, Priyanka, you want to respond? Yeah, please.
So Purva, I'm not an expert on this, but I feel like any river, the minute you start changing its course, like Puneet has mentioned already, it creates several issues. So it creates watershed issues and creates, if not urbanization, but at least the river ecological system that it functions under, it completely changes. So it is maneuvering and manipulation on a large scale, on a very large scale, which has its own problems that would arise.
Thank you for raising this question. It has been in discussion with the planners at the national level for past 60 years, I suppose. It started in 1950s actually, in Nehruvian era. And that was the first time when this idea was thought about. And still it picked up in when our Prime Minister was Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee in the India government. It is still picked up. It went on in the UPA government. I think we have still not, as a nation, understood the implications of it. It's, as rightly pointed out by Priyanka, it has a massive implication for the ecology in different parts of the as big country as India is. Although the perceived benefits are told about equitable distribution of water, flood management, and all those sort of arguments by the people who look forward to this project to be alive. It's a massive investment project. I think the biggest that India would have ever seen if it implemented now. But having said that, I think that the environmental and the ecological aspects of it is still are not understood. It's a very huge manipulation of your ecosystem and the environment that would be involved in it. And therefore, I think that the confidence level, both in the governments and the resistance from the public, is almost equal at this stage. It's not moved yet. I think that both the governments and the people are trying to grapple with this, that what could be the implications of it before committing it for implementation, both in financial terms and ecological and environmental terms. That is what my understanding is of this as of now. Yes, please. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question is to Priyanka.
Yeah.
This is regarding the Talinala project. I'm C. Roy. I'm Joint General Manager, Architecture and Infra, Mekon Limited. My question is regarding that particular Talinala project. That is on board, that is for discussion and design for the last maybe 20, 25 years. I would just like to know if anything is happening.
Every time I have been to Kolkata and approached this issue, I'm still new at this. there hasn't been any movement because it requires a lot of funds allocation, and the problem actually lies in the fact that most of the rivers and the basin, they're under several authorities. So for instance, the river itself, the stream itself will be with the irrigation ministry, whereas the basin will be
These
under
are all
something.
well-known problems for the last maybe 25 years. What
So there has
government
been
is
no
doing.
action as such. There has been several sort of thought process and design proposals that come in, but there has been no action because that requires a complete government input.
That's
Or you
what I'm
start putting your
asking, what the government
community
is
in.
doing. That's what I'm asking.
I'm
at
not
the
a part
broader
of the
scale.
government.
That is a very small scale thing. We are discussing about joining the rivers and doing this thing to
Correct.
that thing. This is a very small scale and it's been on the discussion board for maybe last 25 years.
You're
And the funniest thing is there is quite an amount of rainfall in that area. So it's not difficult to do the job. It's not a dry area. So what is the progress? This sort of presentations students have been making for the last 25 years.
So can I just interject? There are three issues, and which is where I'll bring in that last image I showed you. One is you need a certain amount of policy effort in every issue. That comes top down. Let me finish. The second issue is a community level intervention. So if there are several imaginations that are brought out, they also have to be displayed and shown to a community to get them on board with it. The third is, how do you bring a market player? Someone who's actually going to sponsor and initiate this discussion and give you the money. Because what you're looking at, in Kolkata, I don't know the figures that go into this particular drain or this particular river, you have about 1100 million liters of water, wastewater per day that is put into the river system. So you're looking at an effective, large-scale strategy. It doesn't happen overnight. Secondly, it needs to come both on a community level, and professionals like us are only here to provide the imagination for it. It has to be taken over on several fronts. And hopefully you're one of the stakeholders who can help. Are you in Calcutta?
No, I'm in Delhi.
So that's
but
what.
That's
So
my town.
we need people to actually help in taking the issue forward.
It has been taken forward, and what government is doing, then my question is to the government.
So I'm not a part of the government, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Next to you.
Anybody else want to ask a question?
Yes,
I will come to you, but I think there is a hand from the back side.
I have the
Can
mic.
you please give your introduction and ask your question?
Yeah. Right now I have the mic, so I'll be asking the question. My name is Sandeep Singh, and I work in wastewater treatment sector. My question is again to Ms. Kapoor. You said, Priyanka. So in your presentation, we saw that the upstream river had huge volumes of water, and when it went to the downstream, the water reduced. So is the water being diverted to for some use, or because that is not possible if it
No,
is
it's a
not being-
tidal thing. So it's
Acha,
also
it's a
tidal.
tidal thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the Hooghly, if you know, it
Huh.
meets downstream
Cheap.
with the Bay of Bengal.
Okay, that is the reason. Okay.
Yeah.
Normally what happens is upstream volume is
So
less.
that's
and,
because it's fed from upstream.
And again, you said that 11 MLD of
1100 MLD.
1100 MLD.
Oh, in
That's
Kolkata. Yeah.
in Kolkata.
Yeah.
If that is being added to that river,
Not to that river. I said
not
to
particularly,
all.
some amount must be being added to
Yes.
that Adi Ganga. So is there a plan of treatment of that water before it is being released to the canal in your imagination, or what you presented?
Yes, there is. So it's a two-pronged approach in any river restoration project. One is a desilting and dredging process that you would have to carry out before you put in a remediation process into the picture. So the dredging process would be a single activity. The second part, if you saw the section that I kind of whizzed past the whole thing, but the second part, if you see that section, it involves an intervention. So the whole point of this thesis was, how do you do something like this with minimal intervention on large scales? So how do you incubate and create your site? So because I'm a planner, so you create a site just with what you have. So that little section is where your point of intervention is. And that's where, if you see underground, we have given a interceptory sewage line, which would intercept the sewage going in and then carry it forward to an STP. So that's the mechanism that has been thought for. But that's remediation. That's the second level after you've dredged the whole site.
Makes sense.
Next, please, yeah.
Yeah, my name is Ram Babu. I am from Hyderabad. The question on the interlinking rivers, I think the first state interlinking rivers was done in Andhra Pradesh. They linked the Godavari river with the Krishna through pumping the Godavari water into the Krishna river. I think one of the first project in India. So the answer to your question. The question is like the stringent policies will never work in India. We have to create awareness in the public, about the usage of water, and if you pollute the water, then how it's harm to the people in terms of health and other hazards. So yeah, you need to have a stringent regulation, plus again you need to have a awareness about awareness in the people who are living surrounding the rivers. So how is on that?
Yeah. So I think on the policy front, which you mentioned, the enforcement is always a loose connection in this country. So we know that, and I think it begins from the top, where we have a central groundwater board, and for surface water we have a separate body. So the water itself is looked at from a different aspect. The policies are dissected there. The resources are multiplied. The people looking at water management are again, so for the same water body which is filled by a surface water, and then it percolates to the groundwater. So you have two separate boards to look at it, and that starts from the top. And that's what Priyanka says, at a top level we have a failure. So we don't know how much runoff, how much surface water, how much is evaporated, how much is going into the plains. So we don't know the whole situation per se, because they are two different bodies. And that's very sad. Basically, I mean, we should have one body. Just a minute.
Just to clarify further on this, there is a thought process happening in that direction, and probably the policy will be announced soon by the central government, where there is a talk of merging these two bodies like Central Water Commission and Central Groundwater Board. This has been in the policy discussion for quite some time, and probably now the government has made up its mind to kind of go on with the reforms like this. But having said that, I think that it's an administrative measure to kind of what we normally call integrated water resources management as such. But having said that, I think that what is missing from the discourse largely is rainwater. I call it in my field Akash Ganga. So there is a Ganges on the ground, which we are very much bothered about, feel connected to it. But then there is a Ganges which is coming with much purer water from skies. And we are letting it, we don't know how much of it we get and how much of it we go waste to the seas, to our rivers and to the seas. And we don't know. I mean to say, we are actually polluting this water, which is the pure water received, and then making it flow, going waste. On the other hand, there is a Ganges on the ground, which is polluted, which is abused, and now we are talking of Namami Gange to revive this beautiful river that gives life to, I think, the most people in the world, if they live in any river basin, that is in Gangetic basin. So that is how it is. And therefore, I think that when we talk about this entire cycle of groundwater, surface water, and the connect with the rainwater, I think we have to deal with this comprehensively. In the last session, somebody, in fact, we were talking about the feasibility of rainwater harvesting at household level. And there is a lot of civil society organizations which will vouch for it, go for it, promote it. Is it the best way to do it? Have you ever thought of how much water we are able to collect and how we are able to use at a household level? Will it be better to have a rainwater harvesting at a community level, at a larger community level, or at a city level, or a town level? And there is a huge possibilities over there which are waiting to be explored. How do we do that? How do we use that water to set off at least some of the pressure on the groundwater that we have, and also have a better quality water for the most premium kind of uses. Some industries require a water of a very good quality as such. It is becoming very costly for those industries to have that kind of a standard of water for their process. And probably I think we need to explore more kind of this thing, as Navdeep will agree with me about this issue. But then again, we have enough comprehensive thinking, like he was saying earlier? I mean to say, how do we do that? It's not about merger of the government bodies, but it's about the way we think. As a government, as people, as civil society, as academicians, how do we see it? And there, as I said, I've been working in this sector for past 20 years, and now I have been started realizing about this connect between the different kinds of water that we are dealing with, and how do you bring this picture to the people on the ground in terms of their thinking, changing their thinking about how to manage this resource, which we are talking about, or see the connect of the management practices that we have, and the restoration of a river, or giving life to a river, or protection of a river body. And that discourse can extend to in areas, many parts of areas where you have a pond-based systems, tank-based systems, which have been our lifeline for ages for agriculture farming. So are we looking from that perspective at the overall protection of water bodies, including rivers? I think these are the questions that I would like to place before you for more contemplative thinking on this issue, and come out with some sort of recommendations as we move forward, which takes us to away from the business as usual approach of managing water resources, to have some paradigm shifts in the way we think about, in the way we plan about water, in the way we see our rivers, and in way we look as environmentally concerned citizens on all these issues. I think I will stop here, and I would like to thank both the speakers on the panel who have joined us for this session. Thank you so much.
I thank you all for your valuable thoughts and knowledgeable presentation. I would like to request our chairperson, Mr. Puneet Srivastava, to present the mementos as a token of our appreciation to the speakers on the dais. Ms. Priyanka Kapoor. Mr. Navdeep Singh Mehram.